Water is the essence of our bodies. Okay, we walk around in these solid forms with definable boundaries, but beneath the surface is a network of fluid that's the cornerstone for all of our biological function. 60% of the body that you know and love is made up of water. 7% of that body is the circulatory system, and yet all of the oxygen and all of the nutrients in our body needs to touch virtually every single one of our cells. And it does this through the medium of the water that lives in the space in between the cells, serving as a communicator, a facilitator, an administrator of nutrients. Water has been recognized by practically every world religion as being sacred, and it's been used intentionally as a therapeutic for thousands of years. Water is medicine. And I know this because as 15 years in practice as a naturopathic medical doctor, water has been the essential therapy that I've used to help my patients. And I'm going to tell you the story about one of them. So her name's Carmen. When Carmen first came into my office, she was in her late 60s, recently retired, and suffering with crippling fatigue. She had had multiple joint pains that had been progressively getting worse over the previous 10 years. She had migraines almost every single day of the month, and loose bowel movements multiple times a day. Her fatigue was so bad that she would spend most of her days on the couch, and if she was able to get up to cook dinner or something like that, it would come at the expense of not being able to socialize on the phone or in person with her friends. And this was a real heartbreak for her. All that she wanted, despite all of that going on, all of she wanted was to enjoy her retirement with her loving husband and be engaged with her church community, which was a huge source of joy for her. But she was in crippling pain. When I asked her to describe her pain, she just shrugged at me and said, "Doc, it hurts all over my body." She had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and these were just a few of the diagnoses I pulled from over 100 pages of medical records that her specialist had faxed my office. I told her that she had a journey in front of her, but we were going to work together to put together a program to help her body get back on track. And she was diligent. She followed the diet I put her on, avoiding certain foods and focusing on ample amounts of others. She took a course of herbal medicine to help improve her circulation and calm an overactive nervous system. And she would come into my office regularly for biophysical therapy, which is a combination of contrasting temperature, wet towels, water, and partnered with biological currents of electricity and acupuncture, all geared at improving microcirculatory function and mitochondrial health. So about 6 weeks after she started therapy, we had a check-in, and her pain was down by about 30%. She'd only had 6 migraines in the past month. Her bowel function had totally normalized. And not only that, but her energy was starting to pick up. So much so that she and her husband actually decided to spend the winter at their desert home. And 6 months without therapy for a patient at this course in her progress could be a major setback. But I told her that I had a plan. There is a town close to where their house in the desert was that at one time had been a renowned epicenter for health and rehabilitation in North America due to their free-flowing geothermal mineral spring water. So I told her about this, and she said, "Doc, this is something I think I could do." And geothermal mineral water has a legacy that predates recorded history. Okay, these waters are formed deep in the earth, and they're superheated and pressurized and forced upwards. And as they make their way up, they are absorbing minerals through different sediment beds as they find their path of least resistance to the surface. And only select places on this earth have been graced with these waters. But wherever the waters are found, there's a culture of using the waters for healing. So in Europe, the ancient Greeks and the Romans would build palaces on top of these geothermal resources, harnessing these waters as part of their bathing complexes, where people would come and focus on health, hygiene, and socialization. As you moved east, the Eastern Roman and Islamic cultures would give rise to the hammam, which was a fusion of the Roman bathhouse and the sweat tents of the Eastern nomadic peoples. The hammam moved along with Islamic culture through North Africa and eventually into Southern Europe, where bathing culture was reborn into the West out of the Middle Ages into the Renaissance era. In the 18th and 19th century, grand spa towns were built over these thermal resources. These centers became places of not only healing, but culture. People would come from all over Europe to take the waters. They'd stay for 3 weeks to 3 months, bathing, resting, and socializing. Eventually, these towns would build medical facilities, and the science of balneology, the therapeutic use of mineral water, was born. Now, that science has been refined into the modern day, and researchers have actually detailed out the mechanisms and effects that mineral water have on the body. Armed with that science, health resorts from around the world now receive patients to treat a variety of conditions: chronic pain, injury rehabilitation, metabolic conditions, respiratory conditions, rheumatological issues, much more. Typically, a guest will come and meet with the doctor on site, and the doctor will review their case, then prescribe them a series of treatments: soaking in water, thermal mud packs, physical therapy, diet, ample rest, a host of other modalities. In many countries, these services are actually reimbursed by the National Health Services. In the United States, even though we don't have that level of integration into our medical system yet, we do have just as rich of a legacy of geothermal water. So pre-colonial Native Americans would use the geothermal waters in our country as a site of healing. Local histories even tell us that they would regard the waters as sacred, and as such they didn't belong to any one nation. All people could come together and leave their weapons around the perimeter of the water and bathe and heal as one people. With colonial move westwards, so too came the European model. So bathhouses, hot spring resorts, spa towns, they've been in use in the United States since the 1700s for healing. So I did mention a word before that you might not have heard previously, called balneology, right? So balneology literally means the study of, ology, bathing, balneo. Okay? Anyone who's ever spent time in a hot spring knows that the experience is deeply relaxing and revitalizing. And the science agrees. In fact, researchers have detailed out exactly why the water has the effect that it does. And I call it the big three. Okay? I'm going to share it with you all so that I can initiate you all into the world of balneology. All right? So the big three is thermal, physical, and mineral. So thermal relates to the heat energy that's transferred from the water. See, water is an incredibly efficient transmitter of thermal energy. Remember how our body's 60% water? Well, as that heat moves from hotter to cooler areas, that thermal energy is actually transferred from the water into our very cells, where it sets into motion a series of responses and reactions and adaptations that gently stimulate our body into a higher order of function. Thermal bathing has been shown to improve circulation, reduce pain, improve immune function, and overall improve our resiliency towards stress. So the physical aspect is like this gentle blanketing effect. You're held in this seemingly anti-gravity environment of the water, and part of your brain called the cerebellum senses that, and it turns off the muscles that are holding us upright. This allows for a deep relaxation and better circulation through the body. But not only that, the physical pressure that the water exerts on the skin acts as a cardiovascular tonic. It gently pushes the blood back to the heart, through the liver, through the kidneys, acting as that cardiovascular assist and reducing edema. So my favorite is, of course, the mineral. And it's my favorite for a few reasons. One, because that's what sets mineral water bathing apart from plain water bathing. But also, it's what makes each hot spring totally unique. You see, on that journey from deep in the earth to the pool, each spring picks up a unique profile of minerals along their path. Those minerals are selectively absorbed through the skin and utilized in microdosed amounts to help regulate the function and signaling at the cellular level of our body. The minerals have been shown to be anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, help reduce pain, and a host of other things that really help promote the overall health of our body. And the best part is it only takes 20 minutes of soaking in a hot spring to get these effects. But just like with any exercise program or anything that you're wanting to see lasting results with, repetition is the key. And that's where this classic water cure of 14 to 21 days of daily soaking and rest was first observed. So let's get back to Carmen. We found a hot spring about 20 minutes drive from the house, her house in the desert. We decided that she would soak there for a minimum of 3 times a week for 20 minutes each soak. And not only did the water help with her progress, but in the process, she was able to meet other bathers, share the story of her progress, and get excited and inspired about rebuilding her life. You see, soaking in mineral water has the ability to be a truly holistic therapy. It treats the physical body, but it allows the social body, the emotional body, and even the spirit to find a higher order of expression and peace. So Carmen and I checked in about 2 months after she started soaking. Her pain had reduced another 50%. She hadn't had a migraine in over a month. And her energy was improving, so much so that she and her husband would ride recumbent bikes around their neighborhood 3 or 4 times a week. She had found a retirement community out in the desert, and she had gotten involved with them, and within a couple weeks was leading one of their groups. And she really fulfilled her dream of having a retirement that was rich and socially forward. And this brings me to my last point. The social bathing movement is exploding in North America. People are getting enthusiastic and excited about this seemingly new way of connecting with each other. And, it's a way that they can connect, but that focuses on health and also an engagement with each other and an engagement with life itself. And it's no surprise to me, because just as the water between the cells facilitates harmony within the body, so too does water facilitate connection between people. And that connection builds healthy cultures, healthy communities, and a healthy society. Thank you all so much.